The windshield wipers fought a losing battle against the snow. David Grant squinted through the white chaos, his knuckles pale against the steering wheel. Highway 41 had vanished under 6 inches of fresh powder, and the temperature outside read -12 degrees. He should have left the job site 2 hours ago, but the foundation pour couldn't wait, and now he was paying for it. His phone buzzed in the cup holder. Amy's name lit up the screen, but he didn't dare take his hands off the wheel. The truck crawled forward at 20 miles per hour, hazard lights blinking uselessly into the storm. Every few seconds, the wind would slam into the side of his vehicle hard enough to make it shudder. Something purple flickered at the edge of his headlight beam. David pressed the brake gently, feeling the tires slide before catching. The purple flash came again, low to the ground near the fence line. Probably a tarp that had blown off somebody's load, he thought, but then it moved. He eased the truck onto what he hoped was the shoulder and killed the engine, leaving the headlights on. The cold hit him like a physical blow when he opened the door. Wind tore at his jacket and stung his eyes. He pulled his hood up and trudged toward the fence, snow crunching under his boots. 20 feet felt like a mile in these conditions. The purple thing was huddled against a fence post, and as David got closer, his brain refused to process what he was seeing. It was small, maybe the size of a 6-year-old child, but the shape was all wrong. For arms wrapped around itself in a desperate ball. The skin, if you could call it that, looked like living crystal that shifted colors from deep purple to sickly blue. Patches along what might be the shoulders pulsed with a weak, dying light. David dropped to his knees beside it, his mind racing. This wasn't possible. This wasn't real. But the thing shivered, and that simple movement erased every rational thought. Cold was cold. Suffering was suffering. Real or not, he couldn't leave a child in the snow. He shrugged out of his heavy work jacket and wrapped it around the small form. The creature's eyes opened, huge and dark like pools of oil, and a sound came out that might have been a whimper. 2 of its 4 hands clutched weakly at the jacket. Hey, it's okay," David said, knowing the words meant nothing but needing to say them anyway. "I've got you." The thing weighed almost nothing. He lifted it carefully, feeling the unnatural coolness of its skin even through his jacket. Its clothes, what remained of them, looked like they'd been made from woven metal threads, now torn and useless. Up close, he could see its chest rising and falling in rapid, shallow movements. David carried it back to his truck and cranked the heat to maximum. He'd deal with the gas bill later. The creature lay across the bench seat, still wrapped in his jacket, those huge eyes watching him with something that looked like fear. The light patches on its shoulders began to pulse a little stronger in the warmth. "My name's David," he said, pulling off his gloves to check its temperature. The skin felt like touching a window in winter. "I'm taking you somewhere safe. Just hold on." The creature's hand, delicate and four-fingered, reached out and touched his palm. The skin color shifted from blue to a lighter purple, and David chose to believe that meant something good. He pulled back onto the highway, driving even slower now, one hand on the wheel and the other resting near his passenger. His phone buzzed again. This time he risked a glance. 3 missed calls from Amy, 2 from Ben, and a text that read, "Dad, where are you? Storm's getting bad." He typed back with one thumb, "On my way." Everything's fine. Everything was definitely not fine, but what was he supposed to say? Found an alien? Be home soon? His mind spun through possibilities. Call 911. They'd take it away. Lock it up somewhere, probably. Call the police? Same problem. The government? David had seen enough movies to know how that ended. The creature made a sound, musical and strange, like wind chimes in a language he didn't understand. Its eyes were starting to close, the light patches dimming again despite the heat. "Stay awake," David urged, reaching over to gently shake one of its shoulders. "Come on, stay with me. My kids are going to want to meet you." That thought should have terrified him. He was bringing something from God knows where into his home with his children. But the protective instinct that had driven him for the past 4 years, since his wife died, kicked in hard. This was somebody's kid. Lost, hurt, scared, and freezing to death. The details could wait. The lights of town appeared through the snow like distant stars. David's street was dark except for the porch lights, and his own house glowed yellow at the end of the cul-de-sac. He pulled into the driveway and killed the engine. The creature stirred in his jacket, for arms moving weakly. David lifted it again, feeling how its skin had warmed slightly, but still radiated an unhealthy cold. He pushed through the front door, snow swirling in behind him. Amy and Ben stood in the hallway, mouths open. Amy dropped her phone. Ben made a sound like a deflating balloon. "I need towels and blankets," David said, moving past them toward the living room. "And get the fireplace going. Now." Above the house, hidden by storm clouds and snow, three lights pulsed briefly in the darkness before vanishing into the night. Ben struck the match 3 times before his shaking hands got the fireplace starter to catch. Flames licked up through the kindling, while Amy piled every blanket in the house onto the couch. David laid the creature as close to the hearth as he dared, watching its crystalline skin begin to shift from deep purple towards something that looked almost amber in the firelight. "Dad, what is that?" Ben whispered, his voice cracking. He stood pressed against the far wall like he might need to run. "A kid who needs help," David said simply, pulling off his wet boots. "Same as anyone else." Amy knelt beside the couch, her 14-year-old face cycling through shock, fear, and something that looked like wonder. She'd always been the brave one, just like her mother. "Is it breathing okay?" The creature's chest rose and fell in quick, shallow movements. Its 4 arms had uncurled slightly, revealing burns across the palms and what passed for fingertips. The light patches on its shoulders pulsed stronger now, casting pale blue patterns across the ceiling. David grabbed the first aid kit from under the sink and returned to find the creature's enormous eyes open and locked on him. It scrambled backward with surprising speed, pressing itself into the corner where the couch met the wall. All 4 hands came up defensively, and the skin shifted to deep violet, almost black. "Whoa, easy," David said, dropping to one knee and setting the first aid kit aside. He kept his movements slow and deliberate, the way he'd approach a scared dog. "Nobody's going to hurt you." The creature made that wind chime sound again, higher pitched this time, clearly distressed. Its whole body trembled, whether from cold or fear, David couldn't tell. Ben shifted his weight, and the floorboard creaked. The creature's head snapped toward him, eyes wide with panic. "Ben, stay still," David said quietly. To the creature, he held up both empty hands. "Look, nothing in my hands. We're safe here." Amy stood and backed toward the kitchen. "I'll get hot chocolate. Mom always said hot chocolate fixes everything." The creature watched each of them in turn, its head moving in sharp, bird-like motions. David noticed it kept glancing at the fireplace, drawn to the light and warmth, but too frightened to move closer. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his lighter, then thought better of it. Too modern, too mechanical. Instead, he grabbed the box of wooden matches from the mantel. The creature tracked his movement, tense and ready to bolt. David struck a match against the box. The tiny flame bloomed to life, and the creature went completely still. Its skin color shifted from violet to a curious orange, and those huge eyes fixed on the small fire in his hand. "Fire," David said softly. "Warmth, light, good things." He moved the match slowly, letting the creature watch the flame dance. He reached out with one trembling hand, and David held perfectly still. The 4 fingers came within an inch of the flame before pulling back. The creature looked at David, then at the match, then back at David. "It's okay," David said, and carefully moved the match closer. This time the creature touched the flame with one fingertip, so quickly David almost missed it. Nothing burned. Instead, the finger glowed brighter, and the color rippling across its skin shifted to warm yellow. The creature made a sound like bells, soft and wondering. The match burned down to David's fingers, and he shook it out. Immediately, the creature's glow dimmed, skin darkening back toward purple. David struck another match, and the transformation happened again. Yellow, orange, the light patches pulsing like a heartbeat. Amy returned with a steaming mug and stopped in the doorway, watching the strange exchange. She set the cocoa on the coffee table and slowly lowered herself to the floor, keeping her distance. Ben hadn't moved from his spot by the wall, but his eyes were huge. "It likes the fire?" "I think so," David said, lighting a third match. The creature had crept forward slightly, no longer pressed into the corner. "I think maybe it needs it." The creature reached for the match again, and this time David let it take the wooden stick. It held the tiny flame in two hands while the other two reached toward the fireplace. Its whole body began to glow, colors shifting from yellow to gold to brilliant orange. The trembling stopped. Amy picked up the mug of hot chocolate and held it out. Not too close, just an offering. The creature looked at it, tilted its head, then carefully took the mug with its lower set of hands while still holding the match with the upper set. It didn't drink, but pressed the warm ceramic against its chest. The glow intensified. "It's absorbing the heat," Amy said, voice filled with wonder. "Look at its skin where it touches the mug." She was right. The patches of crystalline skin against the warm ceramic glowed brighter, pulsing gently. The creature closed its eyes, and for the first time since David found it, it looked peaceful. Ben finally moved, creeping closer with something clutched in his hands. His old stuffed bear, the one he'd had since he was 3 and refused to throw away. He held it out awkwardly, not sure what to do. The creature opened its eyes and looked at the bear, then at Ben. It set down the mug carefully and reached out with one hand. Ben flinched but held steady. The creature took the bear gently, pulled it close, and its skin rippled with colors David couldn't name. It looked like happiness. "You're welcome," Ben whispered. David examined the burns on the creature's hands and feet, while Amy distracted it with a flashlight, making patterns on the wall that it followed with obvious delight. The injuries looked bad, like severe frostbite, but he had no idea what counted as normal for its physiology. He applied antibiotic ointment and wrapped the worst spots in gauze, working as gently as he could. The creature tolerated his touch, watching his face the whole time. When he finished, it touched his hand with one of its undamaged fingers, and the skin there glowed soft yellow. David chose to believe that meant thank you. By midnight, the creature had fallen asleep on the couch, 3 arms wrapped around Ben's stuffed bear, while the fourth rested near the dying fire. Amy had draped a blanket over it, though it seemed to prefer warmth from light rather than fabric. David sat in his recliner, watching this impossible thing sleep in his living room. His phone buzzed. Amy's text read, "We're keeping her, right?" Him. Her. It. David had no idea, but the answer was the same regardless. He typed back, "Yeah, we're keeping her." In the pocket of the creature's torn metallic clothing, something began to pulse with a faint red light. David woke to find Lily, as Amy had started calling her, standing at the living room window with all 4 hands pressed against the glass. The sun had finally broken through the clouds, and she glowed brilliant gold in the morning light. Every surface of her crystalline skin caught and reflected the rays like a living prism, casting rainbow patterns across the walls. The television murmured in the background. David had left it on overnight, too anxious to sleep properly. Now, a news anchor's serious face filled the screen, words scrolling beneath. Multiple UFO sightings across Midwest, military investigating. David switched it off just as headlights swept across the front window. He recognized Rita Bauer's sheriff cruiser before it even parked. They'd known each other since high school, and Rita had a sixth sense for when something was wrong in her county. Lily turned from the window, her skin shifting to cautious blue. She learned quickly that new people meant potential danger. "Stay here," David told her, then wondered if she understood anything he said. He met Rita at the door before she could knock. Rita stood on the porch in her brown uniform, breath fogging in the cold air. "Morning, David. Heard you made it home through the storm last night." "Barely," he said, blocking the doorway with his body. "Roads were hell." "Funny thing," Rita continued, her sharp eyes studying his face. "Got 3 separate calls about strange lights over this area around the time you would have been driving home. Military's been buzzing around too, which never means anything good." She paused. "You see anything unusual?" David's mind raced. He'd known Rita for 26 years. She'd been at his wedding, held his hand at his wife's funeral, taught his kids to fish. If anyone in this town could be trusted, it was her. "Yeah," he said finally. "I saw something. You better come in." Rita's hand had moved instinctively toward her weapon when she first saw Lily, but she caught herself. Years of training fought against basic human compassion as she stared at the small alien girl clutching a stuffed bear. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, Rita breathed. David, what did you do? I found a kid freezing to death in the snow, he said simply. Same thing you would have done. Lily made a soft chiming sound and moved closer to the fireplace, where embers still glowed from the night before. Her skin reflected orange light, and she seemed to relax slightly. Rita slowly lowered herself into a chair, never taking her eyes off Lily. Do you have any idea how much trouble you're in? The feds are going to be all over this place. They'll take her, they'll take you, they'll probably take your kids for questioning, which is why nobody can know she's here, David said. Rita, look at her. She's a child. Whatever she is, wherever she's from, she's just a scared kid. I can't let them lock her up in some lab. Amy appeared in the kitchen doorway with Ben behind her. Sheriff Rita, you're not going to tell anyone, are you? Rita rubbed her face with both hands. This is insane. This is completely insane. But she was already pulling out her phone, scrolling through contacts. I know a doctor who makes house calls and keeps his mouth shut. Owen Park. He patched up my nephew after a bar fight without asking questions. Let me see if he can get over here. 20 minutes later, Dr. Owen Park stood in David's living room looking at Lily with the fascinated expression of a man seeing his entire understanding of the universe rewritten. He was in his 60s, with kind eyes and steady hands that had delivered half the babies in the county. Remarkable, Owen muttered, carefully examining Lily's bandaged hands with a penlight. Her skin is definitely crystalline in structure, but it's flexible. And these light patches. He gently touched one of the glowing spots on her shoulder, and Lily chimed softly. I think these might be photoreceptors. She's absorbing light energy. So she doesn't eat? Amy asked, leaning over Owen's shoulder with unconcealed curiosity. I don't think so, Owen said. Look at this. He held his flashlight close to Lily's arm, and the skin there brightened immediately. She's photosynthetic or something similar. Light and heat are her food. That explained why she'd been dying in the snowstorm. No light, no heat, no way to sustain herself. Ben had been quiet through all of this, but now he spoke up. Does that mean she'll be okay? Her physiology is stable, Owen said. The frostbite damage should heal if she gets enough light exposure. But I have no frame of reference for her species' normal functioning. She could be perfectly fine or critically ill, and I wouldn't know the difference. The metallic device David had found in Lily's clothing sat on the coffee table. It had been pulsing steadily all morning, a soft red glow that seemed to intensify every few minutes. Rita picked it up carefully. This is some kind of technology, probably a tracker or distress beacon. Someone's looking for her, David said. The thought brought both relief and dread. Relief that Lily might have family out there searching for her. Dread that when they found her, she'd be gone. Amy had pulled out her laptop and was typing furiously. If this is a distress signal, we should be able to boost it. Tell her people exactly where she is. Are you out of your mind? Rita stood up, pacing. You want to broadcast an alien signal? The military will triangulate it in minutes. They're already looking, David pointed out. But they're searching blind. Lily's people know what they're looking for. We get the signal out, they find her first. Owen was still examining the device. I have ham radio equipment at my place. If this thing puts out any kind of electromagnetic signature, we might be able to amplify it. Lily had been watching this exchange with her enormous eyes, turning her head to follow each speaker. Now, she moved to David and placed one hand on his arm. Her skin flashed through a sequence of colors. Blue, purple, yellow, orange, white. I think she's trying to tell us something, Ben said. The colors mean things. Blue was when she was scared last night. Yellow when she was happy. Amy grabbed her notebook and started writing. Okay, so blue is fear or sadness. Yellow is happy or safe. What about the others? Lily touched David's arm again and flashed red while looking at the window. Then she made a sound like breaking glass. Red is danger, Rita said quietly. She's saying there's danger. As if summoned by her warning, a low hum filled the air outside. Through the window, David saw a dark shape pass overhead, too slow to be a plane, too controlled to be anything natural. A drone, equipped with sensors he could only imagine. Rita moved to the window and swore under her breath. We've got maybe 24 hours before they search this neighborhood door to door. If we're going to do something, it needs to be now. David looked at Lily, this small alien child who'd somehow become his responsibility in less than 12 hours. She met his eyes and flashed yellow, then touched his hand gently. "Owen," David said, "how fast can you get that radio equipment ready?" "Give me 2 hours," the doctor replied. "Then let's bring Lily home," David said, "before anyone else decides what happens to her." Owen's barn smelled like old wood and motor oil. The ham radio equipment covered an entire workbench, a tangle of wires and dials that looked like it belonged in a Cold War bunker. Lily sat cross-legged on a blanket near a space heater, glowing contentedly in its warmth while Ben kept her distracted with a flashlight game. "This is either brilliant or the stupidest thing I've ever done," Owen muttered, connecting the alien device to his radio amplifier with alligator clips. "Probably both." Amy stood beside him with her laptop, running signal analysis software she'd downloaded. "The device is definitely broadcasting, but it's on a frequency our equipment doesn't usually touch. Really high up there. Can we boost it?" David asked, keeping one eye on the barn door. Rita had stayed in town to monitor police channels and military movement. "In theory," Owen said, adjusting a series of dials. "But broadcasting an alien signal at high power is like shooting off a flare. Everyone's going to see it." Lily made a soft sound and stood up, moving to the workbench. She placed one hand on the device, and it pulsed brighter. Then she looked at David and created a pattern of colors across her skin. White, blue, yellow, white again. "She's trying to tell us something," Amy said, writing in her notebook. "White is new. She used it before when she looked at the stars." Ben shined his flashlight at the ceiling. "Stars. Home." She's saying something about home. Lily nodded, a gesture she'd learned from watching them. She pointed at the device, then at herself, then up. "Someone's listening," David said slowly. "Someone out there is listening for this signal." Owen threw a switch, and the equipment hummed to life. The alien device began pulsing faster, its red glow intensifying. Numbers scrolled across Amy's laptop screen faster than she could read them. "We're transmitting," Owen confirmed. "If anyone's out there, they'll hear this." The response came within 90 seconds. Every piece of equipment in the barn went haywire. Owen's radio screeched with feedback. Amy's laptop screen filled with cascading symbols that looked nothing like any human alphabet. The overhead lights flickered, and Lily's entire body flashed brilliant white, so bright David had to shield his eyes. Then silence. Lily stood perfectly still, all four arms extended, skin cycling through colors faster than thought. She was receiving something, David realized. Communication in a language of light that no human could understand. "Amy, are you recording this?" David asked. "Every second," she said, her voice shaking with excitement. "Dad, this is first contact. We're witnessing actual first contact." The light show lasted 2 minutes. When it ended, Lily turned to David with an expression he'd never seen before. She looked relieved and heartbroken at the same time. She touched his hand and flashed yellow, then blue, then yellow again. "They're coming for her," Ben said quietly. "That's what she's saying." David knelt beside Lily, eye level with her alien face. "Your family? They're coming." Lily nodded. She pointed at the ceiling, made a swooping motion with her hands, then held up 3 fingers. "3 of them," Amy translated. "3 ships, maybe." Rita's voice crackled over David's phone. "David, you need to hear this. The military just scrambled jets from the airbase. They're tracking something entering the atmosphere. Multiple contacts heading your way." "How long?" David asked. 20 minutes, maybe less." "What did you do?" "We called her family," David said. "Rita, we need to get Lily somewhere visible, somewhere they can see her when they arrive. And where the military can bomb them," Rita shot back. "This is bad, David. Really bad." Owen was already disconnecting his equipment. "The town square. Open space, nowhere for anyone to hide. If we're doing this, we do it in the open where everyone can see." make it impossible for the military to disappear her. David looked at Lily, at this small alien child who'd somehow become part of his family in less than 24 hours. You sure you want to go home? Lily took his hand in two of hers, Ben's hand in another, and reached for Amy with her fourth. She flashed yellow, warm and bright, then pointed up at the sky. Home, but also gratitude. Happiness, but also sadness. She understood what goodbye meant. Then let's make sure you get there safe, David said. They piled into Owen's truck, Lily wrapped in blankets in the back seat between Amy and Ben. The drive into town took 6 minutes that felt like hours. David could see lights in the sky now, moving too fast to be planes, too purposeful to be meteors. The town square was empty except for Rita's cruiser parked under the old oak tree. She got out as they arrived, her face pale. Federal task force is 10 minutes out, she said. Air Force interceptors are already in position. David, this could turn into a shooting war. Not if we do this right, David said. He lifted Lily out of the truck and carried her to the center of the square, setting her down on the frozen grass. Lily, show them where you are. She understood. Her whole body began to glow, brighter than David had ever seen, a beacon of white light that turned the dark square into midday. The patterns on her skin pulsed in complex sequences, sending a message in the only language her people would understand. Three shapes descended from the clouds, triangular and massive, their hulls reflecting starlight. They moved with impossible grace, slowing as they approached the square. One separated from the group and descended lower, hovering 50 feet above the ground. Military helicopters appeared on the horizon, spotlights sweeping the area. Rita's radio exploded with orders to stand down, to secure the area, to prepare for hostile contact. But Rita stood her ground beside David, one hand on her weapon, the other holding her radio. This is Sheriff Bauer. I have a child in the square. Stand down, or you'll have to go through me. A hatch opened in the hovering craft, and a figure emerged in a beam of light. Larger than Lily, but with the same crystalline skin, the same 4 arms, the same capacity for creating light patterns that spoke volumes without words. Lily ran forward, and the figure dropped to the ground, gathering her up in all 4 arms. The reunion needed no translation. Love was love, in any language, on any world. David felt his throat tighten as he watched Lily being held by what had to be her parent. This was right. This was how it should be. But then the larger alien approached him, still carrying Lily, and David's world shifted one more time. The alien towered over David by at least a foot, its crystalline skin shifting through colors that seemed to express emotions too complex for words. It held Lily close with 2 arms while the other 2 reached into a pouch at its side, producing a small device that it held between them. That a woman's voice emerged from the device, speaking perfect English with a slight musical quality. I am Ren. This child is Lily, my daughter. You protected her when she was lost and dying. The Ethon people are forever in your debt. David's mind struggled to process that he was having a conversation with an alien parent in the middle of his hometown square, while military helicopters circled overhead. I just did what anyone would do. She needed help. No, the translator corrected, and Ren's skin flashed a deep red. Most beings would have left her. Many would have harmed her. You risked everything to save a creature you did not understand. This is rare. This is precious. A black SUV screeched into the square, followed by 3 more. Armed soldiers poured out, taking positions around the perimeter. A woman in an Air Force uniform strode forward, her jaw set in a hard line. I am Captain Helen Cross, United States Air Force, she announced, her voice carrying across the square. You are in violation of restricted airspace and have made unauthorized contact with American citizens. Power down your vessels and prepare to be taken into custody. Ren turned to face her, still holding Lily. The other 2 Ethon ships descended lower, their presence impossible to ignore. The standoff crystallized in an instant. Human military on one side, alien vessels on the other, and David's small group caught in the middle. Captain Cross, David called out, stepping forward. These people aren't invading. They're looking for their lost child. That's all this is. Step away from the extraterrestrial, Mr. Grant, Cross ordered. This is a matter of national security. This is a matter of basic human decency, Rita countered, moving to stand beside David. That's a parent and child up there. You want to start an interplanetary war over family reunion. Cross's expression didn't change, but her hand moved away from her sidearm. We have protocols for situations like this. You have protocols for alien children freezing to death in snowstorms. Amy asked, her voice sharp with teenage indignation. Because I'd love to see that manual. Lily squirmed in Wren's arms and reached toward David. She began creating light patterns, complex sequences that Wren watched with what looked like surprise. Then Wren's skin shifted to a color David had never seen on Lily, something between gold and green. Lily says you gave her fire when she was cold. The translator spoke. You wrapped her in your warmth. You protected her from those who would harm her. In Ethon culture, one who protects a child, not their own, is honored above all others. You're what we call Kar then, guardian of the lost. I'm just a construction worker, David said, feeling overwhelmed. I'm nobody special. You are Kar then, Wren repeated, and the words seemed to carry weight that the translator couldn't fully convey. David Grant, I have a request that may sound strange to your people. Captain Cross moved closer, her soldiers following. Whatever you're about to propose, it goes through proper channels. Wren ignored her, focusing entirely on David. The Ethon have observed your world for some time. We see a species on the edge of greatness, capable of compassion and cruelty in equal measure. We wish to make contact, but slowly, carefully, through individuals who understand that beings from other worlds are still just beings. You want me to be some kind of ambassador? David asked, incredulous. We want you to be yourself, the translator said. The human who saw a child in need and helped without hesitation. The one who gathered allies to protect what was right. The Kar, then, who proved that your species is ready for the wider universe. Ben tugged on David's jacket. Dad, that's like the coolest job ever. Amy was already recording everything on her phone. The internet is going to explode. Cross stepped between them. This is not a decision one civilian makes. First contact protocols require government oversight, United Nations involvement, and years of preparation. With respect, Captain, Owen spoke up. I think the first contact already happened. In a snowstorm, on Highway 41, when one human being helped another in trouble. Everything else is just paperwork. Lily was still reaching for David, making soft chiming sounds. Wren lowered her gently to the ground, and she ran to him, wrapping all four arms around his legs. David picked her up, and she pressed her forehead against his, a gesture that needed no translation. She wants to stay with you, Wren said, and David heard the pain in the translated voice. Not forever, but for visits. She has formed what we call Talshan, a bond that transcends biology. You are family to her now. David's eyes burned. He'd lost his wife 4 years ago and raised 2 kids alone, never expecting to add an alien daughter to the mix. But here she was, glowing yellow in his arms, happy and safe and home. I don't know how this works, he admitted. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. None of us do, Wren said. But we learn together. That is the way of Kar then. Cross was on her radio, receiving orders from somewhere up the chain of command. When she lowered it, her expression had shifted from hostile to something more uncertain. I'm being told to stand down pending diplomatic review. This situation is above my pay grade. She looked at David. But know this, if you accept this role, your life will never be normal again. Every government on Earth will want a piece of you. You'll be watched, questioned, and second-guessed at every turn. Sounds terrible, David said, holding Lily close. But I've already got the hard part figured out. What's that? Cross asked. How to be a decent person, David replied. Everything else is just details. Wren's skin flashed bright gold, and Lily echoed the color. Approval, joy, hope for the future. The Ethon parent approached and placed something in David's free hand. A crystal device, warm to the touch, that pulsed with soft light. For talking across the stars, Wren explained. So Lily can speak with her Earth family, and you can speak with her Ethon family. We are connected now, David Grant. Today, you change the future of 2 worlds. Above them, the military helicopters began to withdraw, replaced by news choppers hungry for footage. The town square filled with people who'd heard the commotion and come to witness history. David looked at his kids, at Rita and Owen, at this small alien child who'd somehow become his responsibility and his joy. He thought about lighting that first match in his living room, about choosing compassion over fear. "Okay," he said to Ren, "let's figure this out together." 3 months later, David stood in his backyard watching Lily teach Ben how to create light patterns while Amy filmed everything for her YouTube channel that now had 4 million subscribers. The spring thaw had turned Michigan green again, and Lily glowed like a small sun in the afternoon warmth. The crystal communicator on his belt pulsed gently. He tapped it, and Ren's translated voice filled the air. "David, we will arrive in 40 minutes. Is this still convenient?" "Perfect timing," David said, watching Lily's excited response to hearing her Ethon parent's voice. "We got dinner ready." Dinner. The word still made him laugh. It had taken weeks to explain to the Ethon that humans ate solid matter for energy, and their confusion had been hilarious. In return, he'd learned that Ethon meals were social gatherings around light sources, absorbing energy while sharing stories through color patterns. Tonight would be both, a fusion of two worlds learning to understand each other. The past 3 months had been chaos. Government officials had parked themselves in David's living room for 2 weeks, asking endless questions. The United Nations had created a special committee for Ethon relations, which basically meant a lot of people in suits talking about things they didn't understand. David had sat through exactly 3 of those meetings before deciding his time was better spent actually getting to know Ren and learning about Ethon culture. Captain Cross had become an unlikely ally. She'd been reassigned to oversee civilian Ethon interactions, which meant she showed up at David's house twice a week to make sure nobody was planning to invade anybody. She and Rita had become friends over their shared exasperation with government bureaucracy. "David," Amy called from the porch, "the news crews are setting up across the street again. Should I tell them to leave?" "Let them stay," David said. "Transparency, remember? That's the whole point." That had been the agreement hammered out during those endless meetings. The Ethon would make contact slowly, publicly, through trusted individuals. No secret bases, no hidden agendas, just people meeting people and figuring things out in front of the whole world. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Lily ran over and tugged on David's sleeve with 2 hands while the other 2 held Ben's baseball cap, which she wore constantly now despite it being too big for her head. She pointed at the sky and flashed white, then yellow, then green. "They're coming, I know," David said, ruffling her head around the cap. "You excited to see your mom?" Lily nodded enthusiastically, then hugged his leg and flashed blue for just a second. "You're not going anywhere," David assured her. "Visit means visit. You come back home when it's over." That had been the hardest negotiation. Ren wanted Lily to learn Ethon ways and culture, which meant extended stays on their ship and eventually trips to the Ethon homeworld. David wanted Lily to grow up with her Earth family, to go to school and make friends and have a childhood. They'd compromised. Lily would split her time between both families, learning both cultures, becoming something new. The first of her kind. The Ethon ship appeared as a shimmer in the sky, then solidified into the familiar triangular shape. It landed in the field behind David's house, the same field where he'd played catch with his kids 1,000 times. Now it served as an interplanetary landing pad. The neighbors had complained for about a week before realizing their property values had tripled. Ren emerged with 2 other Ethon, both carrying containers that glowed from within. Lily ran to meet them, and the reunion was all light and music and joy. David gave them space for a few minutes before Ren walked over, the translator device active. "David, you look well. The stress has not broken you yet." "Not yet," David admitted, "though I had to hire a publicist. Never thought I'd see that day." "We have brought sustenance," Ren said, gesturing to the containers. Light sources of varied wavelengths for Lily in this. One of the other Ethon held out a basket covered in cloth. "We attempted your concept of casserole." Dr. Park provided instruction. David lifted the cloth and found what looked like lasagna, if lasagna had been made by someone who'd only had it described to them over the phone. You made Earth food? We wish to participate in your customs, Ren explained. Is it incorrect? It's perfect, David said, meaning it. The gesture mattered more than the execution. Come on, let's eat. Dinner was controlled chaos. Amy live-streamed the whole thing with permission, narrating for her millions of viewers. Ben showed Ren his new telescope, explaining constellations while Ren politely didn't mention that the Ethon had mapped those stars centuries ago. Rita and Captain Cross showed up with actual store-bought lasagna as backup, which turned out to be necessary. Owen brought wine and spent an hour discussing Ethon biology with Ren's companion scientists. Lily sat between David and Ren, one hand holding David's, another holding Ren's, the other two working on a bowl of ice cream, while she glowed contentedly in the kitchen light. After dinner, they gathered in the backyard around a bonfire. The Ethon were fascinated by fire, this chemical reaction that produced light and heat so differently from their technology. Lily had explained to Ren through light patterns about the match David had lit that first night, the moment she knew she was safe. Ren approached David at the edge of the firelight. There is something I must tell you. The Ethon Council has made a decision regarding Earth. David's stomach tightened. Good news or bad news? Complicated news, Ren said. Because of what happened here, because of your example, the Council has voted to extend formal contact to Earth. Not invasion, not control, simply friendship. An invitation to join the wider community of worlds. That's huge, David breathed. That's everything. It is happening because of you, Ren continued. Because one human saw a child in need and chose compassion over fear. The Council believes if your species can produce such individuals, is ready for the stars. David looked at Lily, laughing with Ben as they made shadow puppets in the firelight. I'm not special. Thousands of people would have done the same thing. Perhaps, Ren agreed. But you're the one who did. You are Kar then. And now you're also what we call Velkar, bridge between worlds. The first human to truly understand what it means to be Ethon. I barely understand what it means to be human half the time, David joked. Ren's skin flashed a color David had learned meant amusement. Then you're perfect for this role. Come, the Council wishes to meet you next month. They want to understand the human who changed history by lighting a single match. Later that night, after the Ethon had returned to their ship and the news crews had finally left, David tucked Lily into her bed. She'd claimed the guest room as her own, filling it with both Earth toys and Ethon technology, creating a space that belonged to both worlds. She was still wearing Ben's baseball cap. David tried to take it off so she could sleep, but she held onto it with two hands, flashing yellow stubbornly. Okay, you can keep it, he laughed. Sleep well, Lily. She sat up and touched his face with one hand, creating a pattern of colors across her skin too complex for him to fully understand. But he got the general meaning: love, gratitude, home, family, forever. I love you too, David said. Sweet dreams. Downstairs, Amy and Ben were still awake, arguing about whether humans or Ethon made better pilots. Rita had fallen asleep on the couch, finally relaxed enough to let her guard down. The crystal communicator pulsed gently on the kitchen counter, a reminder that they were never truly alone anymore. David stood at the window, looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the Ethon homeworld spun through space. Soon he'd visit it, walk on alien soil, meet beings from across the galaxy. His life had become something from a science fiction novel, but it had started with something simple. A snowy night, a freezing child, and the basic human instinct to help someone in need. He'd lit a match to show Lily she was safe, never imagining that tiny flame would illuminate a path between worlds. His phone buzzed. A text from Owen. News is reporting 6 more alien species have requested permission to visit Earth. You started something big, David. He texted back. I just helped a kid. Everything else is details. Outside, the Ethon ship rose silently into the night sky, its lights blinking a pattern that Lily had taught him meant until we meet again. David watched until it disappeared among the stars, then went to check on his kids. Both of them, human and Ethon, asleep and safe and home. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, New meetings, new complications. But tonight, his family was together, and that was all that mattered. David Grant, construction worker, widowed father, and now bridge between worlds, turned off the lights and headed to bed. He had a feeling he was going to need his rest. The universe was waiting, and apparently, they wanted to meet the human dad who'd save an alien girl with nothing but compassion and a wooden match, but he could work with that.